Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing okay and you've had a nice restful weekend. Welcome back to Functional Skills English. We're on week 17 now, and just a quick reminder that if this was your week to be due in college, you need to make sure you join that Google Meet that's on the Google Classroom stream. Should be the day and the time of your lesson. If you just click on that link, your tutor or tutors are waiting there to say hi. Explain what you're doing today, maybe have a little chat, ask any questions that you've got, and also make sure that you've got some feedback from last week. So any work you completed last week should have been marked and should have been returned to you with some feedback. So please make sure that you check that out, because there might be points for development that you can put into this week's writing task. So we are sticking with writing. And last week we were doing writing letters, so hopefully that was helpful for you. This week we're practicing writing competition entries. Now, the main reason we've chosen this is because it's a very popular question in the writing exam, but this could be something that you have to do in real life as well. Lots of shops, cinemas, places like that often hold competitions where you have to do a short piece of writing, be it a descriptive piece of writing or possibly a review, or maybe you just telling somebody why you really like a brand for example, and then you're entered in a prize draw to win something. So it is something that's quite common, and could be something that you do in real life and maybe even win. So that's what we're going to be practicing today. Now, as always, everything that you need is on Google Classroom. If you're watching this video and you've not yet been to Google Classroom, it might be that your tutors have linked it for you in the Google Meet. You still need to go on Classroom in order to get the other bits and bobs that you'll need, and I'll show you them right now. Okay, I apologise if the screen just goes black for a couple of seconds. I'm just switching between tabs. So sometimes it just takes a few seconds for it to show you what I can see. So as I said, this week is week 17. So when you click on classwork, you just have to scroll down a little bit and find week 17, which is called Writing Competition Entries, KC5. So on there'll be the YouTube video that you're now watching, and there'll also be two other documents. One is called Competition Flyer. The other one is called Meadowhall Competition Entry Sheet. Now, if any of your documents don't appear here, just check up in the top right-hand corner. There might be a purple button that says Turn It In, and above those, you might have the documents. You might only be able to see the video here. I know a couple of people had that problem. I promise you it is all there somewhere. You just might have to look around your page, because I know mine might look slightly different to yours. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to look at is the competition flyer. So if you open that up, again, if you just give me a second, it just takes me a couple of seconds to switch between these tabs at the moment. I think Chrome's had an update, and for some reason it's not switching as smoothly as it did before. So the flyer should look something like this. So that also includes the scenario and your task or your brief, if you like. Hopefully that looks familiar, because you had something really similar last week. And the other document that's on there, sorry, just have to, again, share a different tab. Please bear with me. The other document is on there, should be called Meadowhall Competition Entry Sheet. And that should look something like this. And this is basically where you are going to write your response. Now, this is different to a Word document. So when you actually go to write it, you have to double click in that box for it to open as a drawing. And then you have to put your cursor in there when you want to do the actual writing. Okay. Now, if anybody does want to write on paper, that's absolutely fine. Just make sure that you take a picture of it and upload it so that your tutor can see it and they can mark it and give you some feedback. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this one now and I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoint. So those are the documents that we're going to need. So maybe if you want to open them now, so you've got them already open in your tabs, and you can just open them up when I tell you to in the video. All right, so today we're going to plan and write the competition entry, and we need to make sure we're going to use the correct information and appropriate language for our audience and purpose. Now, the reason that I've chosen correct information is because the main point of feedback I saw last week was that people didn't include all the information that the brief told them to. So on your brief or your task, you're given a scenario, then you're given a task, and then it says you should include, and there's usually 4 bullet points, sometimes 5. A marking criteria, the first usually marking criteria in the exam is that you have included all of those bullet points. And I marked several pieces of work last week and people had missed out some of the bullet points, or it looked like some people had not even looked at them at all. Those bullet points aren't there for a laugh. They're there because that's exactly what they want you to write about in the exam. And they're a really good cue for when you need to start a new paragraph as well, because they're usually about a different topic. So please bear that in mind. The focus is to make sure that you write all the correct information that you're asked to write. Okay? Okay, so last week we said that before we write anything, we need to answer 3 questions. Now, I'm wondering if anybody can remember what these 3 questions were. I want you to do me a favour and just pause this video now, just for a couple of minutes, and I just want you to jot down, either on a Google Doc or maybe on a piece of paper, what are the 3 things, maybe shout it at the screen if you like, what are the 3 things that you need to know before you start writing anything? Okay, what do we think? Who, why, and what? Hopefully is what you wrote down. So who are you writing to? This is your audience, really important, because you've got to know what kind of language to use. You've got to know what kind of arguments to make. Why are you writing? Again, you've got to know the purpose, haven't you? Are you trying to entertain your audience? Are you trying to describe? Are you trying to persuade them? Are you trying to inform them? That is going to inform what kind of language that you use, whether you use lots of facts and statistics, or whether you use lots of emotive language, or whether you write instructions, for example. And finally, what are you writing? Well, that's the format, isn't it? Last week, we knew we were writing letters, so we had to know that so that we knew how to lay that letter out on the page with the addresses in the correct place, the salutation matching the sign-off, for example. Okay, so the who, why, and what, or audience, purpose, and format, they're the 3 things that we must be clear in our minds before we start writing. Because if not, we'll lose focus. We might go off on a tangent. We might write the wrong thing. It might be pitched at the wrong level, might be too formal, might be too informal. So it's really important that we get those 3 things right. Okay, so let's have a look at our writing task for today. Now, I've already showed you where this is on Google Classroom. It's the one that's called competition flyer. So there's a flyer at the top, and then underneath it there's the scenario and the task. Now, the scenario is you have been given the flyer about a competition to win a shopping spree at Meadowhall Shopping Centre. So your task is to write your entry to win the competition. Now, it seems a lot simpler than last week. Maybe it will be. Although you do need to read the flyer to find out some information here. So we need to figure out who our purpose, our audience, and our format is. So if we go to that competition flyer, Can you see this? Hopefully you can. If you go to that competition flyer, the first thing you should see is, would you like to win a shopping spree for you and a friend? Then we've got some pictures of Meadowall. Anybody missing Meadowall? And it says, fancy winning £1,500 for you and a mate to shop the latest high street and designer fashions. Enter our competition and let the 290 stores inspire your gift ideas. Send your entry to Nick Young before 5th of February to be in for a chance to win. And then we've got some various pictures of the shops that are currently closed because we can't go to Meadowall because we're in our national lockdown, but they will be open hopefully very soon. And then you have the scenario of what I've just had on the PowerPoint. So just to remind you, you've been given the flyer above, okay? So this is the flyer. Someone's handed it to you. Don't worry, they sanitize their hands first. Write your entry to win the competition. The bullet points that are there, we're going to talk about those in a second, but let's just focus on the information we've got there in the task sheet and also the information that's on the flyer. Now, if we go back to our PowerPoint and we have a look at the question that I was asking, what is the purpose, the audience, and the format? Can you just pause this video for a couple of minutes and can you write down why you think you're writing, who you are writing to, and what it is that you are writing? Okay, so hopefully you've written down some ideas. Audience. Who are we writing to? Well, it tells us that we need to write to Nick Young. Doesn't tell us who Nick is, but presumably he's the person that's marking the competitions, okay? Now, I've put in brackets there, I think this is going to be informal. I don't know if anybody's got any ideas as to why. I think that the language in the flyer is actually quite informal. If we go back to it, I'm sorry, I know it takes a couple of seconds every time I do this to present a different tab. I do apologise. If we look at that flyer again, the language is very formal. Fancy winning, you and a mate. Yeah, this is quite informal language, isn't it? There's also quite a few exclamation marks. Sort of makes it sound quite exciting and enthusiastic. There's nothing in there that's very formal and serious. It all sounds quite fun, okay? So I would suggest that your entry can be quite informal in comparison to the formal language that you should have been using last week when you were writing to the customer service team at Netflix. All right, so in terms of purpose, audience, and format, our audience is Nick. I'm just getting the PowerPoint back up for you now. Our audience is Nick Young, and I think we should be using an informal tone when we write it. Purpose. Now, I think the main purpose is to inform. The reason I've put that is because of the bullet points that it talks about. I've also put in brackets, there might be an element of persuasion. So I've put persuasive there because presumably you've got to make your entry better than everybody else's because you want to win, because they're going to judge this competition based on what you write. Okay. Now, if we go and have a look at the bullet points that are on the flyer, you'll see, hopefully, why I think that the main purpose is to inform. So it says, include why you want to win. And I've put there in brackets, there might be lots of reasons. Well, because there might be. Why do you want to win a shopping spree? Well, where do I start? Maybe you need a brand new outfit for a special occasion. Maybe you need some money because you can't afford to spend £1,500 on clothes. You don't have a job. Maybe you're still at college and you need some new winter clothes. Maybe you need some boots. Maybe you need a brand new coat. Maybe you've planned to go on holiday in the summer. Fingers crossed we can all go. And you'd like to buy a nice new summer wardrobe to celebrate us coming out of lockdown and being able to travel. There could be lots and lots of different reasons why you want to win. So try and think of some inventive ones. But either way, you are giving information here, aren't you? When you're listing all these reasons or explaining all these reasons. Now, why you like shopping at Meadowhall? Now, if you are somebody that thinks Meadowhall is Meadowhell and you don't like shopping there, don't say that in the competition entry, because chances are, if you slag off Meadowhall, you're not going to win. So even if you don't like it, you're going to have to pretend that you do. Remember what I said last week about using your imagination and being creative? This doesn't have to be true, okay? Doesn't have to be. Let's just humour the brief. So why do you like shopping at Meadowhall? Again, think about it. Is it because it's really big? Is it because your favourite shop's there? Is it because there's such a variety of different shops there? Is it because it can be an entire day out? You can eat, you can shop, you can go to the cinema. Is it because you like the size of the car park? Is it because it's really near where you live? Or it's near where somebody else lives, so it's nice for you to meet up with a friend or possibly a family member? Is it where your favourite restaurant is? Maybe it's just because it's really clean and modern looking. Maybe it's a tradition. Whatever you want. Now, the third bullet point, what would you buy if you won? Again, try and be as creative as possible. There's lots and lots of different shops at Meadowhall, okay? And there's nothing to say that you just have to buy clothes or shoes or whatever, because there's lots of different shops, isn't there? I haven't been to Meadowhall for a long time, but my favourite shop used to be the music shop. I don't know if it's still there. They used to have a big piano in the window and they used to have loads and loads and loads of guitars. I want to say that it used to be near Marks and Spencer's. Might not be there anymore, but that was my favourite shop. And I also like all the little shops in the lanes, you know, where the food court is, the Oasis bit. So anything that you want, but what would you buy if you won? Now, the final bullet point, who you would take with you, again, completely up to you. Is it going to be a friend? Is it going to be a family member? Is it going to be your favourite English teacher? Completely up to you. Now, all those things are giving information, aren't they? Which is why I said we're writing to inform. And we need to try and give as much detail as possible. But again, there might be that element of trying to persuade, especially in that first bullet point, why we want to win. Try and convince this person that you should win this. And maybe even the second and the third bullet point as well, depending on what you say. Maybe it's not going to be for you. Maybe the stuff that you're going to buy is going to be for somebody else. Maybe you're going to be really, really generous and you're going to donate things to charity. So they should definitely help. You should definitely win the competition because you're going to help other people that are less fortunate than you are. Now, in terms of word count, we talked about this last week. If you're entry 1 or entry 2, we are expecting at least 4 sentences, and there are 4 bullet points there, so that should be very easy to do. If you're entry 3, we'd be expecting at least 4 paragraphs, a total of at least 75 words. I think you could probably write more than that though. And if you're level 1 or level 2, we want at least 250 words over 4 paragraphs again. The higher the level, the more depth and detail that we expect. But you should always just try and give as much detail as possible in every writing task that you do. So the first bullet point, why you want to win, if you can think of 3 reasons, write down all 3 reasons, don't just write one. If there's 3 reasons why you like shopping at Meadowhall, write all 3. Give us some personal examples. Yeah, be really specific. And then you can see on there as well, just tells you what you should do when you've finished writing, which is proofreading, which I will come on to anyway when we get there. Okay, so I think hopefully that concludes that part, and we can now just talk about the format, which is the last thing on the PowerPoint. Just give me a second. I will go back to the PowerPoint. Yeah, so we're writing to we're writing informally, and our audience is Nick Young. Our purpose is to inform and also to persuade. And finally, our format is a competition entry. Now, the only layout features that we need to worry about today is our name, our contact number, and paragraphs. So if you go to the document where it says Meadowhall competition entry, you should be able to see that it looks something like this. Now, I don't think you've got the lines, but that's because we're doing it on a Google Doc now. And as I showed you earlier, you just need to double click inside that box in order to write what you like in it. Well, in terms of layout, you can see it says name. So that's where you need to put your name. And if you remember from last week, your name is really important. So it needs a capital letter for your first name and a capital letter for your surname. Contact number, obviously, just make up a number, make up a mobile number. Presumably that's how they contact you if you win. And then it just says, write your entry here below. So in terms of layout, as long as you fill in those 2 things, and if this was an exam, there is usually marks for filling in the name and the contact or the address, whatever they ask you for. And then the only other layout feature you have to worry about is paragraphing. Now, again, I've said here, use the bullet points as a cue to start a new paragraph. So every time there is a new bullet point on your competition flyer, that brief, leave a new line. Too many people last week forgot to paragraph, and everything should always be paragraphed. Now, it says you might need to continue on paper. Obviously, that's just for those of you that are writing on paper and you're printing this off and writing on it. Okay, so don't worry about that one if you're doing it on a Google Doc. All right, so what I'd like you to do is I want you to pause this video here and I want you to write your competition entry. I'll just show you one more time how to do that in case anybody is struggling. I know that Google Docs are different to Word documents, so sometimes we're not sure how to use all the features on them. So this is the document that you need to open. You just need to click there and you would just write your name. So if it was me, I would write my name and then I would just make up a contact number, something like that. I don't know how many digits that is. Now, in terms of actually writing the entry, you need to double click on that box and it'll come up with this. And then you just need to click inside there. Okay. I might start with something like, hi, Nick, because it says we're writing to somebody called Nick, doesn't it? I was handed your flyer the other day and so excited to be entering competition to win. I think it was £1,500 for oops, capital and Okay? You could maybe do something like that. Maybe you just want to get straight in there and tell Nick exactly what's going on. And the first bullet point was, why do you want to win? I really want to win the competition to win a shopping spree Meadowhall because, and then obviously you would start giving your reasons. But as soon as you go on to that second bullet point, press return because you need to leave a new line. Hopefully you've noticed the reason I've put a capital M on Meadowhall is because Meadowhall is the name of the shopping centre. Remember, so it's a proper noun. Also, Nick, name of a person, needs a proper noun. So once you've done that, all you need to do is just press save and close, and then that will appear. I'm going to get rid of this before I press save and close, and then that will appear here. Okay. And then once you've finished, you will restart the video, because I will still be here waiting for you, and we will finish the rest of the session. Okay, so make sure you've got everything you need. Pause this video now and write your competition entry. Okay, so once you've finished, you need to make sure that you proofread your writing. So like last week, I showed you this. You've got some prompts there of what you need to check for. So have you written in paragraphs? You should have done, because those bullet points were a cue every time you needed to start a new paragraph. Have you used capital letters at the beginning of every sentence? We should also extend this to have you use capital letters for every word that's a proper noun. So every time you've used somebody's name, possibly you've wrote Meadowhall. Remember, it was asking who you were going to take with you as well. So if you've written the name of a friend or a family member, that also needs a capital letter. Have you used a full stop at the end of every sentence, or a question mark if you were asking a question? Have you used apostrophes if you've shortened down any words like don't, won't, can't, I'm? And finally, have you used the correct spelling of the homophones? Again, I'm sticking with there, and there because these are the most commonly misused ones. So there, T-H-E-R-E, as in over there. There, T-H-E-I-R, as in belonging to them. And there, T-H-E-Y apostrophe R-E, meaning they are. Make sure if you've used any of those ones, you've got the right spelling. Finally, if there's any spellings that you're not sure about and that you think you need to revise, you can jot them down somewhere. Again, I appreciate that if you don't know how to spell a word, how do you know if you spelt it right? But there might be things that you definitely know that are not spelt correctly, that you need to use a dictionary, an online dictionary if you haven't got a paper one, to look up. Okay, so again, if you can just pause this video and make any amendments to your work, paragraphs, capital letters, full stops, apostrophes, and then check for that there, and there. Okay, so the final thing we're going to do is just a little bit of self-assessment. So I'd like you to, if you're on paper, grab yourself a highlighter, or if you're using Google Document, you can use the highlight tool. I just want you to highlight the name and the contact number because I want to make sure that you've definitely completed them. And I also want you to highlight all the correct information. So can you highlight where you've covered every bullet point in that brief? Because remember, we said that that was one of the most important things we were going to focus on today. Finally, check that you've used paragraphs. You should have already done that in the previous slide, but we can double check just in case. Once you've done that, you should again be able to answer the two questions at the bottom there. So what went well today and what did you find difficult? It's really important that you do this self-reflection, because if you're not identifying what's good and what's not, you're not going to be able to improve. So please make a note of what you think went well and what you found difficult. You can maybe do that in a private comment. You can do it at the bottom of that Google document, or if you're on paper, obviously you can write it down and take a picture. Hopefully what you found difficult has improved from last week. So you might want to just pause the video there for a minute to make a note of those two things. Okay, well done. So today we have planned and written a competition entry, hopefully using the correct information and appropriate language for your audience and our purpose. So differences from last week, we were writing more informally than we did for the formal letter. And again, the layout was different. We didn't have to remember as much information in terms of layout today. It was just our name and our contact number and making sure that we wrote in paragraphs. Okay, so what you need to do now is please make sure that you turn in your work on Google Classroom so that your tutors can mark it. They'll do so as soon as they can, and they'll send you some feedback that you should make sure that you read before next lesson. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, and I will see you all next time.